Is the Parent Trap home one of your favorite movie homes? Well, you're in luck because that's the home we're touring today. Hi, I'm Marina Coates. Welcome to Behind the Scenes, where we get up close and personal with all your favorite TV and movie homes. On today's episode, we get to explore the Parent Trap home, a home that feels like your favorite comfort food, warm and familiar and oh so satisfying. And if that wasn't enough, it also just happens to be a veritable showcase of great set design. Let's get started. You get an immediate taste of this scrumptious home as soon as you approach from the front drive. From the wide, gracious, welcoming porch with the clay tile roof and the thick, stuccoed adobe walls, right on down to the colorful pots, there are already so many clues about what awaits us on the inside. And all that without so much as having taken a step through the front door yet. Let's start with an overhead view to give us a feel for the layout before we actually enter the home. The first room we encounter is the large living area. As we turn to the right, and before we enter into the dining room, we first cross a passageway that leads from this door and on through to the courtyard. Next, we arrive at the dining room, which then opens out into the spacious, inviting courtyard. After the dining room, we find the kitchen. It is uniquely placed, a totally separate room with doorways that are not connected anywhere to the rest of the home. In other words, no matter which kitchen door you use, you will need to go outside of the main house to access it. And then we have that iconic courtyard area, with a covered patio, a water feature and a well, a planting area with a huge tree, and two mystery rooms, the interiors of which are never shown to us in the film. There is also a separate room, an outbuilding really, outside of the compound proper and connected by a breezeway. Now that we're all familiar with the layout, let's get started with the actual tour. This room, the living room, is so dramatic that it's a virtual scene stealer. No wonder that when Sharon arrives, pretending to be Susan, and sees it for the first time, she is mesmerized, just walking around and trying to drink it all in. Which brings up the obvious question. Just what is it that makes the Parent Trap home so spectacular? What is it that makes us all wonder and awe, bowled over by the beauty of this home, just like Sharon? I know. This home just happens to implement every single one of the great bedrock principles of cinematic design, and not in an over-the-top, let's just stuff everything in there kind of way, but rather thoughtfully layering each of those principles, placing them carefully, purposely, and precisely, weaving them together into a masterpiece, which plays out almost like a symphony, but one of sight rather than sound. And the result is music to our eyes. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, "Architecture is frozen music." Good set design can be that way too. And seldom has it been orchestrated as beautifully as it is here. I have another show on this channel called Cinematically Inspired Design, where I teach the 3 foundational principles of cinematic design, as well as the 8 pillars of design that naturally spring from those principles. I teach us how to take the design secrets from the cinema and bring them into our own homes. There's a reason you fall in love with movie homes. Here is where you'll find out why. Let's break down the elements that make it all blend so well together in this particular room. First, let's turn our attention to the thick, creamy stuccoed walls, punctuated with deep, striking, saturated colors. We see this in the artwork and in the stained glass, and tiles. There is almost a primitive feel here, and yet mixed with a modern flair. A vibrant burnt orange is sprinkled around the room. We see it in the chairs and in the pillows. It also shows up in the room beyond. I discussed the concept of color beyond in Cinematically Inspired Design Episode 1. In essence, it means using color beyond the room you're standing in as part of the design scheme of that room. We see this illustrated in the orange dining room chair that can be seen from the living room. It pulls our eye out there, creating a little mystery. What's back there? It makes that area seem like it's almost part of the living room, extending the room visually. Now let's take a walk around the room, taking it all in, much like Sharon did. Then I'll show you a few more of the principles we can learn from this masterful set design. Now let's turn our focus to the fireplace wall. What an impressive work of art it is. Tall enough that we could walk right into the first portion of it, and then it recesses back even further into a smaller alcove where they actually light the fires. Look at the two massive beams with brackets, and the colorful tile base, and the size of it. It takes up at least half of that wall. Another delicious detail to this room, the unique and stunning windows. Look at the oversized window opening behind the curved couch, nestled between the two massive stone pillars and trimmed out in a thick wood frame with carved wood panels below. And of course, that incredible modern stained glass feature on the side. An interesting tidbit, I believe this may be the exact same stained glass piece used in the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? You decide. Another set of equally unique windows are perched high above the split staircase, skillfully arched with a wooden grill inside. They're deeply inset with the bottom portions slanting outward. Love it. The doors also make their own statement. The front door features hand-carved squares with elaborate detailing. A matching set of doors sits straight across on the opposite side of the room. Notice the raised tile platform and the half wall and the handrail leading out to the exterior. Then we have the two sets of French doors that open out onto the front porch. They're inset nicely with a wavy amber glass. One of my favorite things about this room is that it provides a view out into that amazing courtyard. It makes it feel as though the courtyard functions as just a further extension of the room. It draws the outside in. And with so many exterior doors and passageways, the lines get blurred between the nature that enfolds the home and the interior spaces within. Before we leave this room, can we just talk about those stairs for a moment? Wide and ornate with sumptuous curves, accented by the colorful Spanish tiles that line each step, and a built-in shelf running the length of the hallway above. Chunky platforms are carved out on the left-hand side and are deep enough to hold large decor items, while on the right-hand side, we find a warm wood hand railing that perfectly follows the curve of the stairs, with generously spaced, wide, flat balusters holding it up, furthering the sense of handcrafted artistry that runs throughout the entire home. Notice the varied, perfect blend of textures and materials found in just this one room. Stucco plastered walls, stone, wood, colored glass, tiles, sisal carpet. You would think that it might all be too much, and yet it was layered together meticulously, achieving perfection in this movie home and creating an instant classic in the process. Now, armed with all of this new information and details, let's take another slower walk around the room so you can bask in its beauty before we move into the dining room. Adjoining the living room is the dining room, but to get to it, first we need to cross over a passageway that leads from this door into the courtyard. Once inside of the room, we're met by 3 side tables, all large in scale and with elaborate, hefty ornamentation. I just love the color on these furnishings. They seem to be a kind of denim blue with a white chalky glaze cast over the surfaces. The side tables are perfectly paired with the large wooden rustic dining table, surrounded by the orange fabric chairs with a heavy weave to them. Yet another seamless blend of materials and textures. Now I want to bring your attention to the doorways. Notice how they stamped a large, intricate design into the concrete on each side of both entryways. And also notice how the thick walls are lopped off at an angle with a big overhead wooden lintel. Simply marvelous. Let's take a tour around this beautiful dining room and then we'll head on out into the kitchen. The kitchen is an entirely separate room, entered from outside, rather than from a door in an adjoining room, which, by the way, was actually common in Spanish colonial homes. Once again, attention to detail shows up in large measure. I think we're sensing a theme here, aren't we? Starting with the incredible curved doorway with a woven lattice side panel and thin wooden poles overhead. I noticed that sometimes there was a door there and other times not. I'm assuming it depended on what they were filming that day and what they needed for that particular scene. Other notable features include floor-to-ceiling cabinetry on the back wall, made of the same rosewood seen in the rest of the kitchen. But these cabinets also have an added detail, a pair of thin gold metal striping running the entire length of the wall. Some other items that stand out: the large, distinctive hood over the range, the unique shape of the island, and the pendant light, the torchlight, and those stools. By the way, the torchlight was sometimes there and sometimes not. But what really makes this kitchen is the view out into the courtyard. Here's where we get a look at the well and the water feature, the concrete breeze blocks across the way, and the huge old tree that shades the entire patio area. But most importantly, that incredible piece of stained glass. It's placed on the side of what appears to be a potting shed, but the fact it can be seen from inside the kitchen makes it become a part of the total color scheme of the kitchen itself. There's that concept of color beyond again. Case in point, this is one of my favorite stills from the whole movie. We see the beautiful Maureen O'Hara in the kitchen making dinner, and I can guarantee you that the colors they chose for those pots was very much purposeful for that scene. You see a red and a yellow pot, and a deep blue vase or a pitcher in the background. But look beyond that. What's in the distance there outside the window? You see a colorful stained glass, and you see the very same colors in it. Vibrant blues, yellows, and red. Coincidence? Not from these detail-minded set designers, I'm sure. It was very much on purpose and meant to capture our attention. Imagine if it wasn't there. The room simply wouldn't pull you in the same way, would it? It's intriguing. It pulls your eye beyond. It draws your vision past the room, making that space beyond seem like part of the room you're standing in. It adds dimension, and it adds a little mystery. It makes you wonder what's back there. The set designers used this principle repeatedly throughout this film. And now here's the take-home point. If they can do it, so can you. It's not rocket science. You too can easily and inexpensively apply this same principle in your own home. And look at the impact it can have on a space. I can teach you how. I have 2 episodes devoted solely to the cinema's use of color in design, and how you can bring those same concepts into your own home and create the same effects. That particular principle is a major part of what makes the Parent Trap home an all-time favorite for so many people. Why shouldn't your own home be transformed into an all-time favorite as well? Now let's take a little tour around the kitchen before we move on. And now the pièce de résistance, the iconic and majestic courtyard. It seems as though they constructed the entire home around that very courtyard, both figuratively and literally. It's the place that all the other rooms empty out into, like a river flowing into the sea. They make us cross through it to reach other rooms, like the kitchen, for instance. It's full of quaint, inviting gathering spots. The covered patio area with its breeze blocks and large structural columns sheltering a piano, chairs, and a table. The seating area by the big tree. The water feature and the well. The solid fence enclosing the area. The wide passageways seen from the terrace. And plants galore in abundant clusters. We see china, lanterns, benches, and large brightly colored pots. Can't you just feel the magic here? Now look at the large clay tile entrance that steps down from the home into the courtyard. This was the area used as a stage in the movie when the girls put on a show for their parents. You know the one I mean. Their parents would have been seated right here as they watched. I love how from here you get a view into the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, and you can also see the exterior stairs that go up to the bedrooms, as well as the overhead covered walkway that leads to those same rooms. And of course, those mystery rooms that we were never shown the inside of on the show. I might have to remedy that. Such a beautiful, serene, secluded space. Who wouldn't want to spend time here? The courtyard features seem to whisper, slow down, cool off, and relax. Move at a little slower pace, refresh yourself and stay a while. What's your hurry? Now, before we go on, let's pause for a moment to reflect on the overall tone or feeling that we're experiencing in this home. In the cinema, they only have about 2 hours to tell us everything they want us to know about those characters, to fill in the blanks and flesh out the characters, in essence, to tell their story. So they've become masters at learning how to condense design down to where it has the greatest possible impact. And they've learned to use design to tell a story about the people who live there, and to set a mood and a tone for the home. So once again, the take-home point. You can do the same thing in your home. You can use the design in your home to tell your story and set the mood you want to have there. Let's look at ways the Parent Trap set designers did this for us and see what we can learn from them. Alfred Hitchcock said if it's a good movie, the sound could go off and the audience would still have a perfectly clear idea of what was going on. I want to take that a step further. If a movie truly has good set design, by merely looking at the homes in the film, the audience should have a clear idea of who the people are that live there. So let's look at this ranch home again, but through those cinematic eyes. What do we see here? If you had never seen the film before, what could you guess about the family that lives here? Notice the different pieces of artwork chosen for the ranch house. Big, chunky, rustic frames surround most of the paintings. Large scale furniture, extra wide hallways. We see horse sculptures, some with an almost primitive kind of feel to them, and views to the outdoors everywhere. These characteristics line up with the owner of the home, Mitch, played by Brian Keith, a bachelor who is big and tall and broad-shouldered, a bit rustic, and a little bit larger than life. He's also a hard-working rancher who prefers old Jeeps, blue jeans, and the great outdoors. Without knowing anything about the film or the characters, just by looking at the home, you would be able to make some logical guesses about the kind of man that lived there. But let's take a closer look at that artwork again. What type of paintings do those big, chunky, rustic frames hold? They are chock full of color and beauty, elegance, refinement. And who does that sound like? Maggie, his ex-wife who abruptly re-enters the picture, played by the lovely Maureen O'Hara, who is full of life, color, and beauty. She dresses in the latest fashions. She's from the culturally refined Boston area with its accompanying lifestyle. When we get to see her Boston home in the film, it exudes elegance, sophistication, and feminine beauty. The artwork, furnishings, and style of the ranch home weds these two opposing lifestyles, giving us a pretty big hint from the moment we enter this home that maybe these two personalities could be blended together and it could all work out in the end. Your home should reflect who you are too, and it should feel effortless, not orchestrated. A beautiful blend of what makes you, you, what makes your family, your family. So what will reliably create the mood you want in your home? How do you tell your story? I teach these concepts and how to implement them in each episode of Cinematically Inspired Design. As I teach and walk you through the time-tested principles, you will discover how to make your home feel just the way you want it to, the way it should be, the way it was meant to be. You will learn how to tell your story through design. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's tour and hopefully learned some fun things along the way. On our next episode of Behind the Scenes, we'll be going upstairs at the Parent Trap house. We'll also get a look at the interior of those mystery rooms we talked about and try to figure out what they might have been. There are clues. I'll show you the approximate square footage of the home, the cost in today's dollars, as well as the estimated income of the family. We'll get to see the layout of the whole property and walk around the exterior as if we own the place, including heading on down to the pond and the barn. By the way, you'll find a link below in the description that will take you to a page where you can find similar items as those we saw in the home today. If you don't want to miss an episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. Stick around at the end to see the set design team that brought us this incredible home. They were geniuses, and they deserve their due. But as for today, that's a wrap. See you next time on Behind the Scenes.